Society Matters.
I'm Bernie Furshpan here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center on our podcast series, Raised by Survivors on HMTV. I am in studio with a very special guest, another 2G, another second-generation Holocaust survivor who has a very fascinating story. She is a wonderful person and has volunteered here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, and I'd like to introduce her to all of you. Her name is Ethel Greenberg Oppenheimer.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It really is. You live on Long Island.
I do.
But you weren't raised here.
No, I met my husband when I was in college in Boston at Northeastern University, and he moved back to Long Island to be in practice with his dad. So when I graduated college, came to New York, but I was raised and born in Connecticut.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you born in what part of Connecticut?
New Haven.
Oh, okay, that's a great area. Not too far from Yale.
No, exactly in the outskirts of New Haven.
Right.
Exactly. I lived right into there.
Right. Did you have any aspirations to go to Yale?
No. I hung out in a high school, but no.
Okay. Well, you were raised were both of your parents survivors?
My father was a partisan, and my mom was through the camps.
Isn't that amazing? I've interviewed a lot and had conversations with many 2Gs, and I find that survivors look for other survivors
So my
to
parents,
start families, right?
So my parents actually met at a Jewish dance in Passaic, New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And my father heard my mom speaking on the telephone Yiddish, and they struck up a conversation, and that's how they met.
How interesting. So were they both from Connecticut, or your father was from out here?
He was also from Connecticut, New Jersey area. He never really sat, but yes.
I see. Okay. So, but they went to a dance in New Jersey. They met, and the rest is history.
Right. My mom was sponsored when she came over after the war with her dad. She was sponsored by her uncles who lived in Connecticut and New Jersey. So
I see.
And when her brother and sister with their families came over to New Haven, Connecticut, that's where my mom and her dad relocated to.
I see. And do you have any other siblings?
I have a younger brother.
Very good. And so tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up with survivors. Now, you mentioned to me earlier that it's a little different than growing up with survivors in New York City, for example.
I think it is.
And tell me why. Why you think that way?
After raising a family here in New York and having a child who went to Syracuse University, and my cousin from Connecticut, their daughter was going to Syracuse also. It's maybe materialistic or just value. I'm not sure, but it's a big difference. It's not keeping up with the Joneses. I was raised in New Haven, Connecticut, where there was a huge, huge group of people who were Holocaust survivors. And that's who they hung
And
out
I
with.
wasn't aware that there was a community there of Holocaust survivors.
Yes,
I thought mostly in the New York City area.
No, my father, after the war came here and learned a trade as being a butcher. He was a kosher butcher. Mm-hmm. And all of my parents' friends were survivors because when my dad passed away, I was young, I was 32. It was when the museum opened in Washington, D.C. And my mom was the only one who was single. And I went with her. And there was 2 busloads of people who went. So there was a very, very big... They still have a few Holocaust survivors still alive there in New Haven.
In Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
That's
That's just New Haven, not to say...
Right. So not only did survivors look for other survivors to start families, but they also looked to live in communities where they kind of felt maybe a little safer, with other survivors around them?
We were raised family was important. My mom
Yes.
had one brother, one sister who were alive.
Right.
And their spouses basically didn't have much of a family either. And so we only had one grandparent, let's say, between all 6. And all 7 first cousins all had a child named after our grandfather.
That's amazing. Tell me, what was it like growing up with your parents? When did they start talking about
They
the
never
Holocaust?
spoke about it in front of us.
Now, this is a common thread. When
Yes.
did they start opening up to you? When did you start learning about it?
when Schindler's List was on TV.
Right. I say the same thing.
My mother spoke about it for the first time.
There you
when
go.
we ever spoke around the table, we all spoke Yiddish before we spoke English.
Right.
And, they'd make sure we weren't around the dining room table.
What was it about that movie and the film Shoah that made people open up? Maybe they realized that if they don't tell their stories, they're not going to be, people are going to forget about them. They're going to disappear.
With you, but it's like you always then turned to your parents and to my mom and said, how did you believe in God? Or how did you believe in being Jewish? Or asking things like that,
Those were your questions.
Those were my
questions. And how did they answer that?
My mom's mom was very religious. She still fasted twice a day during the war. My mom always remembered saying on Yom Kippur that they were given more food to eat because the Nazis knew. But she still believed.
They were given more food to eat on Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
Wow, to go against the tradition.
Correct.
How cruel, right?
But growing up, did I feel like that any different? No. You look back, I don't think we suffered anything. We maybe didn't have as much, but you never have known the love of family and friends was there.
Right, yeah. That's the one word that comes to mind when I grew up, the word loved, right?
My father, God rest, used to say when you looked at the amount of toys my children had, he says, all you need is a paper box and a Tupperware and one toy. Who needs 10 Barbies or 10 trucks? The amount that we spent on toys compared to what we had, did we know any better? No.
No. Where did your parents live in Europe?
My mom was originally from Kosher, which is outside of Vilna. And my dad was from Kovna, which was part of, changed names from Russian to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where my father was from, what is now Ukraine.
Yes, exactly. Right. So
it was near Rovno.
Right, that's where he's from here. Exactly.
He was from Rovno?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that town went through hell.
Through hell, exactly. So the only way I could find out about my father was reading literature. I went to Israel the first...
Very disturbing literature about the massacre that took place alongside the roads, correct?
Well, right, because he said my mom always said he was the sole survivor of, he had come back, he had served military, I'm not even sure, and everybody was killed when he came back, and that's when he ran.
Oh, boy. And your mom?
My mom was a third child to a very religious family. Mm-hmm. They lived in Kosher, and when the war broke out, eventually they were placed in a ghetto. And then her father and her brother went to Dachau. Her mom, and her sister went to Struthof. And her mom died 2 weeks after they were liberated from typhus malnutrition.
Mm-hmm. Are they still around? No. It's sad, right?
Yeah.
Don't you have more questions now than you did before? I do.
Yeah. I do. And you just, as you get older, you appreciate more of, especially in this world today, of who you are and what you are.
So true. And what you have.
Right. I did March of the Living 9 years ago.
Very good.
And it was something I had to do. And it was eye-opening and just, you felt...
You have to see the camps. There's a lot of people say that you have to see the camps.
You do. I've gone to March of Living, and then when I went, I've seen Theresienstadt, so yeah. You don't even realize what you see.
Do you lose any sleep about what's happening in the world today?
I do. I do. And I have a lot of family in Israel, so yeah.
Right, me too.
Yeah. It's a sad world we're living in, just all around.
Yeah, in a way, I'm kind of glad that my parents are not around to see all of this.
We were just talking about that. I think our parents would be turning in wouldn't know what to do. I think COVID would have put them through hell and back.
Right,
and this
to be in
definitely,
lockdown, and
yes.
then
this.
What's happening, it's out of control.
Right. Wherever you go, you see police, you come out of temples, wherever. You don't want to wear your Star of David. You don't even want to admit anything today. Boy. So it's tough.
It is tough. It is tough. And there are a few survivors that are still around. There's about 500 survivors on Long Island.
Is there really?
Yeah. And so...
They've got to be all in their 90s at this point.
They're in their 90s. We talk to them, and they're very upset about what's happening. Of course. What? How can they not be? How can we all not be? How can society not be?
But you always, like when you went through the camps and the burn sites, you say... everybody's eyes had to have been closed. Nobody believed that this was happening. You just don't understand it.
We actually learned a lot. And and we teach a lot here at the museum when we talk to kids about that, people didn't believe that this was happening. There were Jews that entered the camps, they get off the trains, the boxcars, and they smell burning flesh. They see the tall chimneys, but nobody believed that people would do things like this to each other.
But did you go on March of the Living?
No, not yet.
Okay. So when you marched from the two camps, people who reside in houses said they were told they did not smell the burning flesh. When you go through Auschwitz and you walk through the gas chamber, and the commandant's wife loved the flesh and made lampposts out of the flesh of Jews.
Right.
You shrug. You just can't believe what you see. You cannot believe. My mom used to just speak about the toilets and just the beds and
Right. Have you been through this museum?
Yes, a long time ago.
Right, and you see how people can be dehumanized in camps situations like this when the cruelty really comes out, right? And all the sadists come out. And most of society is not bad like this, but many people can be manipulated and lied to about other groups of people. But there's always those that get pleasure out of hurting other people in the most atrocious way.
It's to think that
it's a disappointment in humanity because we are all the same, right? We really are. We're all related. We all come from the same place. It's just incredible that this is how low we can descend.
But like you said, educating people is so important because the kids today, whether they listen to their parents or on their phones or whatever, educating them is so important today.
It is.
Because
that's the only way to mitigate hate,
right?
Is to educate them about the facts.
You hear one person saying you like what, let's say the mayor of New York City, you hear what you hear, but you really have to educate yourself about the candidates.
You really do. This is what we're hoping for the future, that young people will become adults, that become leaders who think critically and honestly, right? And not to be loyal to a particular ideology or political affiliation, but to be a human being. That's who you have to be loyal to. You have to be loyal to humanity, not necessarily a political agenda.
So when I went on March of the Living, there was a mom and daughter, and the daughter was actually a teacher in Jersey, which part of the curriculum was teaching about anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. So now, at least in New York State, they're starting to institute that.
Yes,
because
they are.
The temple I belonged to, we raised books and we gave them to different schools and have the teachers take classes to educate the kids, because to spend 1 hour about the war or anti-Semitism is just not enough time.
It's not enough time. And that's why we give tours and educate young people about what really happened. We do it in a condensed way because really it's a bottomless pit of information. We know that.
Right. You start unraveling it more and more. It becomes,
it's just
like you
endless.
said about your parents and my parents, what we could ask now to what we knew when we were young is so different.
It really is true. When you're young, you're just thinking about yourself.
Right.
You think about, dating, you're thinking about your future, you're thinking about careers. That's what's important. And I understand because I went through it.
I was raised how important education is,
Right. Me too.
My mom went back, got her high school degree.
Yep.
But my mom was taught through art how to sew and became a seamstress. Because when she was in displacement camps after the war, that's where she was taught.
Dropping out of high school was not permitted. In my family and the people that they were associated with, other Holocaust survivors, that was totally unacceptable. You have to have a career. You have to earn a living. You have to have money in the bank. You cannot live paycheck to paycheck. You have to have money on the side because you never know when you need it.
Vacation wasn't always the priority. Education was. And I was taught as a girl, you have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet.
Totally.
So, yes.
I guess we were brought up in a very similar way.
Yes.
I had such great parents. I miss them so much.
We all did, right.
Yeah, they're so full of love. And you wonder, they come out of They come out of the Holocaust and they survive, and they're so grateful. They were generous and kind human beings because they appreciated life. It's when it's taken away from you that you appreciate it. Most people take it for granted.
And you would ask them, like, do you have any ill feelings against people? And they would say, no. It's not like they.
It's incredible
to think
how it galvanizes a true understanding of what it's like to be a mensch, to be a human being to another person. Then they really were grateful about that. What kind of food did your mom make? What kind of food were you raised on?
So my father being a kosher butcher, and
right.
I hated meat till I was the pickiest eater. I ate hot dogs and cucumber till I was 12. So forget it. So my mom didn't know how to cook because she was never taught by her mom. And growing up next door, you'd yell across the porch to somebody, "How do you make this and make that?"
So my mom,
she was a good cook, though.
She turned out to be a good cook. My mom would make the Polish. Food, that she knew, but also my dad, because he lost his entire family and he loved his mom so much. She kind of raised my dad in a way, so she made him the comfort food that reminded him of his past.
Okay.
But that's what I grew up on: chulent, stuffed cabbage, chopped
chulent
liver.
Of course,
chulent every Saturday.
I remember taking my mom with her friends.
Oh my God!
To buy the fish to make own gefilte
gefilte
fish.
They made the fish, not like today.
Oh no. Right.
I mean, they had I guess it was the carp. She basically gutted it, and then
take the head.
And gefilte means to fill.
Right.
So she filled it with the stuffing of the fish.
Yes.
Inside the actual fish itself, right? The slices of it with a carrot on the top, sliced carrot.
Of course. Did you learn how to make it?
I never learned how to make it. Then she had the jelly all around.
That was gross.
What about pachow?
I knew you were going to say that when you said
that
jelly.
is the grossest.
So this is the grossest thing going. And I have one cousin
but listen,
who loves it to this day. Who
there
loves it.
are
Will never
people.
Get it.
Look, this is part of a culture. It's a Polish food, and this is what they ate. And you can't wrong them from that because this is what they knew.
But I don't think you can find many people who know how to make it anymore.
Right, but my mom, I think she boiled like calf hoofs.
Yes, you did, or brains, or whatever.
Oh, that's a whole nother story. Calf brains.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, she used to, and then put garlic, but I would open up the refrigerator door and it smelled like a dead body in there.
Oh yes,
right.
Exactly.
She raised me and my brother on shake and bake because we wanted American food. She panicked because I wasn't eating her food. I was eating Mrs. Russo's food next door. Spaghetti meatballs.
My father hated leftovers, so my mom and his
is that
meal.
right?
Yeah,
Look,
our big meal was lunch.
There's nothing better than stuffed cabbage left over, right? Because it became better the next day. It became sweeter.
But yeah, so our his big meal was lunch because he worked, whatever.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, he was a butcher. Did he cook?
No.
No, he didn't cook.
No. Rotisserie chickens every time, or turkey for the holidays for everybody. Yes.
He knew how to cut the meat. Was he a good butcher?
Yes, he was.
And he was a kosher butcher.
He was a kosher.
So did he have to bring in a rabbi? I don't know how all of that works, but
all I can remember is when my husband asked for my hand in marriage. My father was sharpening a blade, and he said to my husband, "If I didn't like you, you'd be gone a long time ago." So
I would have sold your parts.
So yes. So yeah, you just. It's funny, we're just talking about having those favorite recipes. Like my mom liked to cook, one aunt liked to bake. Everybody had their specialties.
Right.
Like today.
Did you ever see your parents cry?
Yes, I did. Not my father, not many times, but my mom, yes.
What did she cry about? What made her cry? Because they were hardened people.
Just maybe... I can't remember anything specific.
Right.
When her dad died, I was 7. So, it struck her hard. She said that the respect and the love that they have for their parents isn't the same that we have for them. It's a different type of love.
Wow.
I guess because of what they went through.
Of course. Well, that's...
The golden that golden tombstone would not be the same.
Right.
The respect that they had for their parents.
Isn't that something? First times I saw my dad cry because he was kind of like a tough guy, was when me and my brother graduated high school. That was the first time I ever saw him cry. And it made me realize that our success was his success because he survived. It was, a reward for him.
Yes, because they worked right.
Because he survived. It was all worth it for him.
Right.
to see this, because this is what he wanted to see.
Exactly. My father had 2 or 3 best friends from growing up that they had reconnected or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. So we were once in Canada as a family for a wedding, and somebody recognized me that I looked just like his sister.
Wow.
So it was like, he was like, yeah, it's just, I mean, we brought up speaking Yiddish before we spoke English. So.
Right. In spite of the fact that what they went through was pure hell, and we certainly don't wish it on anybody, and wish that they never had to go through it. But I consider myself lucky to have been raised by them. Like, if I was given a choice, would you be willing to be raised by a family that had no adversity, you know what I'm saying, versus your parents who survived the Holocaust? I would rather be raised by them, because I think that being raised by them was, my environment was filled with love,
Exactly.
respect, appreciation. There's nothing like it. And even in the summers, we went up to the Catskills,
Exactly.
like
We
a
went
lot
to
of
the Catskills.
survivors.
Exactly. We went to or in Connecticut. There was,
And it was
that's where
great
your vacation
fun.
was for 2 weeks. You went up
Right.
to the hotel.
Right.
Spent exactly.
Oh, maybe
We
we
didn't
bumped
go-
into each other.
we
Where
didn't
did you
go-
go? We went to the Concord, the Nevele, Kiamisha Lake.
There was one in Connecticut, and I don't remember the name of it. But yeah, we went. My mom's best friend actually lived in New York. They were bridesmaids for each other. When that.
Nice.
Like, it's just so different. So different.
It really is.
We didn't go to sleepaway camp.
Yeah.
And things like that.
How many,
That's what I'm saying.
how many children?
2.
2. Do they have children?
They both have 2 children.
Yeah, I have grandkids too.
And you have how many?
4 grandkids.
Okay, so 3 boys and 1 girl.
Yeah, same.
Same.
3 boys and 1 girl.
Right.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's a one. It's
I
the
mean,
best.
I want this world to be better for them. But it's going to be up to the next generation, right, to make that difference. It's really the young people that we're counting on to push back hate, finally. Somebody's got to push it back.
Somebody has
It
to.
doesn't make sense in this day and age. We're so advanced as a society. People walking around with computers in their hands.
The 2-year-olds probably do a better job with the computers than you and I do.
Right. And so you hope that they're somewhat more advanced about, just in general, about humanity, about society. We hope. But it's not necessarily true. It's easy to brainwash people about hate and
Very much so.
separation. And
Unless you watch the news or whatever, TV, and it's all one-sided a lot of
it's
times.
very lopsided.
You don't hear the truth of what's happening in the
And
world.
this is something I still don't understand, because there's no integrity in journalism.
No, there isn't. Absolutely.
I grew up with Walter Cronkite, who told us the facts.
Not
We
today.
got the facts, and that's it. Now it's all opinions. It's not even news. It's just opinions and theories.
And they can talk about each other. There's no control
Yeah,
of what's said.
theories and assumptions. That's not news.
No,
That's
it's
not
not.
have nothing to do with facts.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I don't know when that changed, but it's polarizing.
Well, we have to change the
people.
world again.
That we need a reset button. That's what we need. A reboot.
Exactly.
If there is such a thing, I'd be the first to press it.
I agree with you. I agree. We can't go back in time, but we have to go forward and hopefully on a good foot.
100%. Well, it sounds like we had similar upbringing.
We did.
It's nice when
It
you
is
come
because
across people.
You don't, because that relation or that camaraderie is so different. You feel something very different.
Totally.
Like you speak to people who are Jewish, you have an automatic connection. But when you even find somebody who's had the same type of upbringing,
Right. And same upbringing, and the fact that we know that our parents went through the same hell in the same time.
Right.
They shared the same history, and so do we. I mean, it's passed down to us.
It is.
And so here we are today, doing the best we can
Exactly.
to educate young people that hopefully one day they'll make a difference
I hope so.
and push back. They say that, things swing back and forth.
Well, right now is a crucial time.
Right now, it's a transitional time, and it's probably the peak of the worst. I hope it doesn't get any worse than this. I pray that things will improve and get better, and the next generation will realize that we shouldn't take each other for granted. We all share this planet, right? We can do a hell of a lot better.
It's the truth. Right.
We can do a hell of a
You
lot
have to
better.
live together. respect each other. You don't have to like, but you have to respect each other.
Ethel, thank you so much
Thank
for
you
joining.
for having me. It was so nice to meet you.
Same here. It was great to meet you. And thank you all for listening in on this conversation. I hope it was meaningful and that you enjoyed it. And we hope that you're doing great things yourself. And stay tuned for more great episodes here on HMTV at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center in Glen Cove. I'm your host, Bernie Furshpan of Raised by Survivors. Until next time.